Okay, today I'm going to review some of the homework problems, just the odd problems from the homework, and kind of go through them. You should probably try to do them before you watch the video so you can kind of check your work. Okay, for this problem here we have something to the third power. So when I know what the third power means multiply together 3 times. So that's just going to be negative 3i times negative 3i times negative 3i. Now, sometimes we try to do everything at once. Let's just take it step by step. I'm just going to multiply these two together first. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9, and I times I is I squared. So that's going to be multiplied by negative 3i. But I remember I squared is the same thing as negative 1. So this part right here becomes negative 9. And then that's going to be multiplied by negative 3i. And what I'm doing is trying to take a new complicated problem and turn it into an old, pretty easy problem. So negative times a negative is positive. I get 27i as my answer to that one. It should not be too difficult if you take it in steps. The next problem, this is something we haven't necessarily seen before, but we should, as far as with complex numbers, but it is basically we're just squaring something, and we're squaring the whole parentheses. This 2 does not distribute to each of these. We're squaring the whole parentheses, which means we write the parentheses twice. 2 minus 4i times 2 minus 4i. And what I'm continually doing is taking the new problems, turning them into old problems. This is just a straight FOIL problem. So now I'll just say 2 times 2, that's 4. 2 times negative 4i is minus 8i. And then negative 4i times 2 is minus 8i. And then negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16i squared, because I times I. And now I'm going to simplify this. Basically, when you do these problems, treat the I as if it were an x, and then at the end, when you see an I squared, we're going to change that to negative 1. So that's 4. These two guys combined together to be minus 16i. And this is going to be, since I squared is negative 1, this becomes minus 16. Because positive times negative 1 becomes this. And now I simplify by combining these two together. And I get 4 minus 16 is negative 12, and then minus 16i. And that's how we write the answer. All right, number 5. Again, we're just going to do FOIL. We can do FOIL in different methods. Some people like to write the FOIL. Some people will do the box method. I don't care which one you use. I'm going to try this one today, right now. So here I would put 4 and negative 5i. Here I would put 8 and 10i. This is one method. It's all going to be the same. 8 times 4, that's 32. 8 times negative 5i is minus 40i. 4 times 10, that's plus 40i. And this is going to be, what is this going to be? Minus 50i squared. Okay, so now when I combine like terms, I'm going to write it out as 32 minus 40i plus 40i minus 50i squared. Whether you did this method here, or you did it over here, or you wrote it out with the this and this, it all gives you the same thing. Now what's nice about this one is these guys are going to cancel. 40i minus 40i cancel. So I have 32, and then I squared is just negative 1, so that's going to be plus 50. So 32 plus 50 is 82, and that would be the result of that, remember. So this whole thing here, when I multiply it out, I get exactly 82. Okay, next problem, number 7. We have 3 things to multiply together. Whenever we have 3 things, do like we did on number 1, we just multiply the first 2 together. So I'm going to say negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. And negative 6 times negative 5i is plus 30i. So that's the first 2 terms multiplied together. And I'm going to multiply that by the last term. So for that one then, I would say we'll do FOIL. And I'll do it this method now. Negative 6 times negative 2 is positive 12. Negative 6 times 8i is minus 48i. And then I have, I'll do a different color, 30 times negative 2 is minus 60i. And then 30 times 8 is that's plus 240i squared. So now I'm going to simplify by combining these two terms together. So I have 12 minus 108i. Now, hold on a second. I'm not going to put plus 240 because I squared is negative 1. So negative 1 times positive would be minus 240. And so I combine the first and the last term here because they don't have any i's with them. And that becomes negative 228 minus 108i. So that would be the answer to that one. And now we're going to do some stuff with fractions in it. Okay, we talk about not being able to have a square root in the denominator. Since I stands for the square root of negative 1, it has a square root. So to get rid of that, we simply multiply top and bottom by I. So the top is going to be negative 5i, and the bottom is going to be 9i squared. But I squared is negative 1, so negative 5i over negative 9, which is 5i over 9. And that would be the answer to that one. That's a 5. Okay, and then the number 11, again, we can't have the square root on the bottom, but with this binomial here, means we have to use the conjugate of 2 minus 5i, and that's going to be 2 plus 5i. So top and the bottom of the fraction, we multiply by 2 plus 5i. So now we have to multiply the binomials on the top and then separately multiply the binomials on the bottom. I'll be very clear with this. Let's just, sometimes I just do this. The numerator is negative 3 plus 2i times 2 plus 5i. And when I do that, I got negative 3 times negative 2. That's equal to negative 6. Negative 3 times 5i is minus 15i. And then 2i times 2 is plus 4i. And then 2i times 5i is plus 10i squared. It's 10. So now when I combine like terms, I'm going to say negative 6 minus 11i plus 10i squared is minus 10. So that's going to be negative 16 minus 11i. So that's the numerator. Now the denominator, is the bottom two things multiplied together. 2 minus 5i and 2 plus 5i. And if I pick the correct conjugate, the i's will end up canceling out. And that's going to be 2 times 2 is 4. And that's going to be plus 5, plus 10i. And these two down here are going to be minus 10i. And this is going to be minus 25i squared. So that's going to be 4. These two will cancel. And that's going to be minus 25i squared. I squared is negative 1, so it's plus 25. So that equals 29. So the numerator is right here, and the denominator is here. So the answer would be excuse me, negative 16 minus 11i over 29. Now, we don't leave our answer like this. What we need to do now is to write this as two different fractions. We don't want a complex number to have a fraction underneath it, a number underneath the denominator. So what we'll do is write it as negative 16 over 29 minus 11i over 29, 11 over 29i. So this is technically the way this should be written. Because a complex number has a real part here, which is the part without the I, and an imaginary part that has the I. So that's that.